If you ever mention a word of this to Tony, I'll stick this up your ass and pull a trigger till the bullets come out your eye.
Tony Sirico, a self-admitted former mobster, says he actually enjoyed telling all.
Defendant said to informant that he would use a baseball bat, that he had guns, and that he would carve his initials on informant's forehead. The defendant has been arrested on several occasions for everything from disorderly conduct, assault, and armed robbery. His associates over the past 2 years
You wouldn't be in this situation if you listened to Tony in the first place.
have been men with extensive criminal records.
I started running with the wrong type of guys.
He doesn't want to see you get hurt.
Did you ever kill anybody?
That's a funny question. Well, how can I answer that?
Truthfully.
This is Tony Sirico, who played Paulie Walnuts Gualtieri on The Sopranos. As an enforcer for the DiMeo crime family, Paulie doesn't think twice to brutally murder anyone who crosses him or Tony Soprano, who he is deeply loyal to. And this is just one of the attributes the actor drew from his actual mafia past, which traces all the way back to his upbringing.
Don't think for 1 minute that we were born on the Upper East Side of New York. We weren't. We were born in Brooklyn.
Born in 1942, Genaro Tony Sirico developed criminal tendencies early, getting arrested for the first time at age 7 for stealing nickels from a newsstand. In his own words, "Where I grew up, every guy was trying to prove himself. You either had to have a tattoo or a bullet hole. I had both." In the mid-1950s, he joined the South Brooklyn Boys street gang, where he would get into street brawls, and even got shot in the leg. As he stated, "I always had that itch in my britches to find out who I was. I tested my courage every night." He'd later attempt a normal life, getting married and having kids, only to make a mistake that sent him deeper into crime.
Fell in love with a little girl in the neighborhood about 3 months after I got married. And I was madly in love with her. I left my wife for her, left my 2 kids for her. I just went downhill from there.
His affair and then his jealousy would be his undoing.
I was quiet around her. But the moment somebody would look at her, or I would think they were looking at her, or maybe I wanted to show her that I was in her defense, I gave a lot of guys beatings for her. We were in the Sheepshead Bay one night, Joe's Clam Bar, and some sailor came by and was talking to him. And I'm telling you, I freaked out. I just started wailing on him.
Fuck that. This is how I say nothing.
I overdid it, you know.
How's that for nothing?
I wasn't in my right head. When I was done giving him that beating, I threw him over the rail into the water, and he hit the boat. There was a fishing boat there. He hit the boat. I don't even know till this day what happened to this guy. I just took him, and I got in the cab and disappeared.
But Sirico's aggression wasn't all out of love.
I found myself doing a lot of bad things. Robberies, taking off bookmakers. I was a crazy kid.
He was robbing nightclubs.
In 1967, he would go to prison for 13 months for robbing an after-hours club. And after being released, he became an associate of the Colombo family, one of New York's famous 5 families of major organized crime.
I started running with the wrong type of guys.
He would go on to get arrested 28 times, with his most infamous being in 1970, in a nightclub owned by a man named John Addison. The defendant entered the discotheque on several occasions, refused to pay at the door, refused to pay for any services or products he received. And when he was confronted by Mr. Addison and asked to pay, he told him, Mr. Addison, that he doesn't pay any place, that he's Junior Sirico, and that Mr. Addison better learn how to give him the respect he deserves. Otherwise, he knew how to take care of guys like Mr. Addison. You hit them over the head with a baseball bat, and they come around.
Guess what, mama's boy? You're kicking up $4 to me every month.
He said, I'm going to come back here and carve my initials in your forehead. A previous owner gave him a hard time about not giving him free food and drinks, but after he threw the bouncer out the window a few times, the owner came around to his way of thinking.
Hey, come down here.
Why am I gonna do that?
Of course, I said so.
He said there was one guy who refused to give Junior Sirico the respect he thought he deserves, and that was Bobby Woods, and he said, you saw what happened to him.
They've been told. Twice. Now I'll tell them.
Bobby Woods was found dead with 5 bullets in his head.
Did you ever kill anybody?
No.
Why not?
Why didn't I kill anybody?
Yeah.
That's a funny question. Well, how can I answer that?
Truthfully.
No, I didn't kill nobody.
Despite never being convicted of murder, He was convicted on weapons and extortion charges and was sentenced to prison for 4 years.
I did time at Sing Sing, Auburn, Walkill. I did time all over. The first 6 months in the can, I had a real bad time.
At the core of Sirico's violent rage was still his infatuation.
She didn't come to see me. She didn't even stand in the back of the court and wave goodbye to me when I went away. And for the first 6 months, you didn't want to know me. I was a dangerous, dangerous kid. And then one morning I woke up and then I could breathe again. It was gone. The best day of my life is the day I fell out of love with that girl.
And that day would set the stage for the defining decision of his life.
They brought in an acting troupe, I believe it's Sing Sing.
That troupe was made up of ex-convicts.
And Tony was very impacted by that. It stayed in his mind.
As Sirico recalled, I watched him and I thought, I can do that. So, he started acting in prison. You get a lot of practice in prison. I used to stand up in front of these cold-blooded murderers and kidnappers and make them laugh.
When he got out of prison, he decided that he wanted to be an actor.
One of the acting coaches from the troupe he saw in prison was Michael Gazzo, who you may recognize as Frankie Pentangeli in The Godfather Part 2. After Sirico's release from jail in '73, he looked him up and took his acting classes in New York.
I took an acting class once.
Gazzo quickly became a mentor, dissuading him from his urges to return to crime, famously telling him to leave the gun at home. Sirico then landed a role as an uncredited extra on 2 of Gazzo's projects. He was barely noticeable, but the part secured him his Screen Actors Guild card.
Then there was a film called Fingers, which I have to say was a horrible film, where he plays some kind of thug again who gets killed and shot in the head. He said, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, you look like you."
Sirico was being typecast, but he didn't fight it.
He had very clearly broken with his past, but he wanted to use what he had experienced professionally.
When you play a role that is basically an extension of your life, it's not that hard. And obviously, Tony did that extremely well.
It began to build very slowly.
And then he landed the role of Tony Stacks in Goodfellas.
Hey, Tony Stacks, how are you? Yeah?
Even for a small role, landing a Scorsese classic made Sirico's credibility undeniable and further cemented his ability to play a mobster.
I found it very uncomfortable because it was too familiar.
Sirico's roles got bigger, and so did the films.
I was a gangster in 41 films.
And in the late 90s, a show was being created that would give him the defining role of his career.
All the shows I'd worked on before that were network shows, so there was interference at every level. All these phony TV morals and lack of reality.
Chase's vision was of a brutally unfiltered protagonist.
All of a sudden, the guy that your entire network is riding on is going to strangle somebody to death with a piece of piano wire? That had never been done.
Good morning, Rat.
Coincidentally, in 1996, HBO had branded itself with a new slogan.
It's not TV, it's HBO.
The network was primed for Chase's vision.
On The Sopranos, there was no interference. You were able to go way further out, hence the realism question comes into play. This guy is a mob boss in New Jersey. If he doesn't kill this guy, he's worthless as a mob boss, he's worthless as a TV gangster. I'm lost interest in him.
Enter Tony Sirico.
Tony auditioned for Uncle Junior.
When I went into audition for David, he put a hat on me. The lines were, "These kids today." I said, "Is that how you want to see?" He says, "How do you want it?" As I put the hat back on, "Son of a these kids today." I get a phone call. HBO is deciding on 3 of us. I got a phone call an hour later from David Chase, who tells me, "Yeah, you got some bad news. You're not playing that character."
You hear about the Chinese Godfather? He made them an offer they couldn't understand.
He says, I got something in mind for you. I want you on the show. I haven't decided what you're going to do, who you're going to be. I don't know if he was pulling my pretzel or he was... An hour later, he calls me up and he says, "You are Paulie Walnuts."
So he created Paulie Walnuts for you?
Yeah.
But Sirico didn't immediately accept. He had a condition.
Tony would accept the role of Paulie Walnuts as long as he didn't have to be a rat.
Did you do it? No. Did you f***ing do it?
I said no! I get your f***ing hands off.
And that wasn't his only concern about the character.
In the original script, it said Paulie was a bully. Tony Sirico read that and was horrified and went to David and said, Paulie's not a bully. I don't like this. So they thought about it and said, how about Psycho? And Tony Sirico said, fine. He didn't want to be a rat or a bully. Psycho is okay.
He's gonna marry the girl, for Christ's sake.
As of the wedding day, anything that touches a is off limits.
David Chase is a keen observer of personalities and would incorporate aspects of people's lives. There were things that I recognized that people wouldn't know if they didn't know my brother, that were parts of his life, and certainly his quirks, his fastidiousness, he was a bit of a hypochondriac.
I can't stand touching shoelaces. Bacteria and virus migrate from the soul up.
And he was a bit superstitious. I mean, you know, for a hard guy, he was religious and old school.
Kind spirit, is your name Charles Pagano?
How the do you know that?
The classic Paulie outfit. He's got the jogging suit, the brown one. He's got the hands here. It's a classic Paulie Walnuts beat there.
You can see the way
very featured and pronounced.
he would go in Brooklyn to the barber called Three Brothers, and they would dye his hair jet black and then put the silver wings in. Don't ever touch his hair, ever. You're gonna have a problem.
He would spray a cloud of hairspray and then let it fall, not directly on the hair.
Sirico's attention to detail took the character from a stereotype to a real person, and actual mobsters noticed. In '99, when The Sopranos was already a hit, Sirico and co-star Vincent Pastore were spotted by FBI surveillance agents at a Christmas party in Little Italy, Manhattan, mingling with James Clemenza, a Colombo crime family capo, and his brother Jerry, a soldier. Sirico acknowledged knowing them since he, quote, knows everybody and has been around, but has denied the meetup.
Never rat on your friends, and always keep your mouth shut.
Stating he doesn't remember it.
To our new boss. Salute.
To Junior. Salute. Junior.
An FBI agent once told Terrence Winter that on Monday they would get to the office and all the agents would talk about The Sopranos. Then they would listen to the wiretaps.
How's your mom, Tom? Same.
And it was all mob guys talking about The Sopranos. They couldn't believe how accurate it was. Real wise guys used to think we had somebody on the inside.
Are you eager to die?
I used to be. I lived a life.
One of the stars of TV's Sopranos has died, Tony Sirico, who portrayed the memorable mobster Paulie Walnuts.
From feared criminal to one of the most beloved actors,
I have not seen a single negative thing about him.
Sirico proved that by changing who you are,
I saw a guy who has a hard exterior and a soft interior. I likened it to a loaf of Italian bread.
you can turn around your life.
If Paulie Walnuts could steal heaven, so can you and I.
And maybe even create a legacy. I'm Adam. This is ScreenPuff. If this resonated, check out this next video. And as always, thank you for watching.